The panther stood on the highest granite cliff, his claws driving into the cold stone until the rock groaned under the pressure. Below, the river carved a path through the valley, appearing as nothing more than a silver thread caught in the palm of his hand. He did not look for prey. He looked for boundaries. Every tree that swayed in the breeze, every watering hole that glimmered in the sun, and every creature that moved through the tall grass belonged to him. The wind whipped across the precipice, carrying the scent of the entire basin, but he did not move to track it. He simply watched. His chest rose and fell in a slow, rhythmic cadence that matched the pulse of the forest floor far beneath his feet. He was the silent architect of this domain. He anchored his weight, ears twitching at the slightest rustle, confirming that the world below was exactly where he intended it to be. For him, the land was not a landscape. It was a collection of assets waiting to be claimed. He turned his head, his gaze sweeping across the horizon, mapping the extent of his absolute rule. He descended the cliff with a fluid, soundless grace, his paws barely depressing the moss. When he reached the stream, a herd of deer stood knee-deep in the water, heads bowed in the afternoon heat.
He did not crouch. He did not wait for the wind to shift. He charged, a blur of muscle and intent. The herd exploded in panic, hooves thundering against the mud, but he struck with calculated precision.
He downed a buck, then another, leaving them where they fell, untouched and cooling in the sun. He did not eat. He did not even pause to scent his victory. He simply watched the remaining survivors vanish into the thicket, their frantic cries dying away. By dusk, the forest had transformed. The birds, usually raucous in the canopy, fell silent. The rustle of small creatures in the undergrowth ceased. Where there had been the vibrant hum of life, there was now only the heavy, oppressive stillness of a graveyard. Shadows lengthened, pooling in the gaps between the trees like spilled ink. The panther prowled the perimeter of his slaughter, listening to the void he had created. He had asserted his rule, and in doing so, he had drained the color from the world. The sky turned a bruised, relentless gray, and the rain never came. Weeks bled into a month until the river, once a thriving artery of the forest, withered into a jagged line of cracked mud. Thirst drove the survivors of the valley to move. They gathered in small, frantic groups, turning their heads toward the distant,
hazy mountains where water still flowed. The panther emerged from the shadows, his path intersecting with the desperate migration. He did not let them pass. He planted his weight in the center of the narrow trail, his body a wall of static resistance. He roared, a sound that tore through the parched air, and the animals recoiled,
scattering back into the heat. He wanted them trapped. He wanted them to stay and wither under his gaze, proving that even in death, they belonged to him. A lone stag, ribs showing through its flanks,
attempted to skirt the perimeter. The panther lunged, cutting off the escape route. He pursued with a rhythmic, punishing gait,
forcing the animal away from the main trail and toward the jagged, dry opening of a deep ravine. The dust kicked up by their feet choked the air, and the stag, blinded by exhaustion, plunged into the rocky descent. The panther followed, his focus entirely on the capture, oblivious to the instability of the canyon walls.
The panther coiled his muscles, driving his hind legs into the loose slope to launch himself toward the stag. He was mid-air when the ground beneath his push-off point gave way. The shale did not just shift, it liquefied. A massive slab of granite, loosened by the drought, broke free from the canyon wall above. It descended with a roar that drowned out the panther's own snarl. He hit the wall hard, his front leg caught in the gap as the slab slammed into the earth. The impact sent tremors through the ravine, followed by a cascading rain of smaller, razor-edged stones. He yanked his trapped limb, but the weight of the granite held him fast. Panic surged. He bit at the stone, his teeth grinding against the unyielding surface, and clawed at the surrounding debris. Every movement of his body only invited more rock to slide down from the unstable crest above. A second, smaller pile of shale poured over him, pinning his shoulder and neck. He thrashed, his claws digging deep into the canyon floor. But the more he fought, the more the ravine wall seemed to close in. The space around him shrank until he was wedged tight,
his breath coming in short, harsh rasps as the dust settled over the silence. The dust settled into a fine, choking powder. The panther stopped thrashing. The ravine was a tomb of his own making, and the silence that followed was absolute. He waited for the rustle of a rescue, for the shadow of arrival, or even the movement of the herd he had terrorized. Nothing moved. The forest was empty. The paths he had policed were now abandoned by everything that breathed. He looked up at the slit of sky above the canyon walls. The moon tracked across the opening, slow and indifferent. He felt the cold seep into his bones, a sharp contrast to the heat of the day. Every attempt to shift his pinned leg sent a spike of white-hot pain through his shoulder, forcing him back into the unyielding grip of the granite. He realized the path was clear now, but there was no one left to walk it. He had spent his life asserting ownership over a world he had systematically dismantled. The weight of the stone pressing against him was constant, immovable, and final. As the first light of dawn touched the top of the canyon, the panther lowered his head. His breathing slowed until it matched the stillness of the rocks. The forest remained quiet, and the sun rose over a kingdom that no longer knew his name.